Hey guys, Wonderboat back with another Prismata commentary, this time between 307th and Dusk. Pretty high rated game, average of like 2150, and base set plus 10. There's quite a big red package here, a little bit of green support, a little bit of blue support. Proto as the best absorber other than Mega Drone, which I wouldn't really consider an absorber, but it can function that way. I think the red package is looking pretty strong here, considering there's not that much absorb, so things are going to go pretty fast. The green doesn't really have access to breach proof. They're kind of just like attackers, and you know, Botch and Rager are kind of just better attackers. Apollo can snipe Tatsu, but I just don't think the triple blue is going to be a factor anyways. So I think this is going to be a red game, but let's see what they do. There is Lance Tooth, so I suppose you could generate some attack with blue and be safe. Rager and Protoplasm can be an interesting interaction, because Blood Rager is such a good attacker, but you're not really denying absorb when it's against Protoplasm. And Botch and Protoplasm can also be a bit interesting, because if you buy too many Botches, then they'll just time out, and the Protoplasm will just keep buying Protos. So Dusk goes for the Fastimus, which, like, in base set plus Protoplasm, you typically go for the Conduit first, respecting like economy and the absorb factor of Protoplasm. So I'm not sure if this is justified, but it might be just because, you know, this time we have Botch and Rager, so that's interesting. The normal response from P1 here would be just to get the Animus and go for 2 red units plus a Conduit. But, you know, there's some fast units here, so like getting a Conduit to get Protoplasm 1 turn earlier, it could make a lot of sense. I could also see like a slow Conduit from him, just like valuing the economy, but that might be too slow, I'm not sure. So Dusk is going to go for a drone. He can't get his Conduit yet, which could be an issue, but he kind of has no choice, right? The only other way to get the Conduit here would be to not spend a red, in which case I think the build is just not justified. Maybe he plans to use like Corpus and get out of red and just get a wall at some point. That could be interesting. Basically, bottom's advantage is just that he has the green, because top's ending his turn with an extra drone and 2 attackers, which is pretty significant half-turn advantage, so this Conduit's really got to do a lot of work. So 307th is going to have the ability to buy 2 red units and a Conduit, or 2 red units and a drone. I'm not sure what he's going to go for. Having the extra green around is basically just probably going to be a force field at some point, which he probably doesn't need if it's not going to be a Proto Mirror. Ooh. Top is considering not getting the drone, maybe? For maybe 2 red units plus a Forge? Or maybe a Conduit, I guess. Oh, that's really interesting. That is really interesting. And opening the Botch, which, as I said earlier, I'm not sure how the Botch is going to interact with the Protos if that's the direction this goes. Because sometimes you just buy Protos back and forth for a long time, and you don't click the Protos either, because you're staying on like 2 damage. And you're just dealing 2 damage into their Protos. So like these Botches might just sit around. He does go for the Conduit, which I think against what Top's doing actually makes sense, because Top is just not going to be able to hold on very long in the game with just 10 drones, even if he gets Blast Forge and plays defensively. Proto per turn is just so much pressure, he's not really going to be able to add much, you know, attackers per turn. I do think though that the green doesn't really do much, but if he got the drone instead, it would be hard to add on the Conduit on the next turn, so maybe he just has to do it now. And he can't get a Rhino against the botch, because otherwise he wouldn't be able to afford the conduit. So he has to go for something like this. I don't think Mega Drone's going to be much of a player here. It's costing like half of your current gold you have, and it might not even deny any real absorb once you factor in Proto. It would give you a really good absorber though. Alright, so Dusk is going for the conduit. So I don't know if I like Top's build very much. Like, he delayed his green so much, and like absorbers really are king. But you know, the botch giving you a bunch of tempo might just justify it. Really hard to say. Haven't quite seen a game like this, to be honest. And like, floating the drone with Fastness build is really, really something rare. So with this Rhino here, the botch is going to get a free hold, although he's buying a Proto anyways. So the Rhino was probably good then. It truly is absorbing. Dusk, we have the global chat coming in. Dusk says, looks like he misplayed, which maybe he's referring to the fact that he doesn't have a conduit yet. I mean, Protoplasm is really significantly better than Rhinos. Like, if Top went for the drone and then just got blue, like, this would be a completely different game, but instead he didn't go for the conduit or the blast. He's kind of just relying on botch tempo, and I suppose Rhino. You know, there is some logic to it. You know, you only need so much tempo, and if he's getting the tempo in a different way, that's fine. But, you know, Absorb and tempo are a little bit different. Absorb is like a bunch of value. But let's see. It's going to be a little tricky for 307th to add some attack, because if he buys a Proto every single turn, it is tricky to add attack. However, he's setting up for Protoplasm plus Gauss Cannon. I would really like to see if Top can stop that. And they did. But against the Rager, he can just add a damage via Corpus plus a Tantalum. That is actually really nice. Tantalum is like a premium unit right now, because the tempo is so high that getting an extra Gauss charge 3 turns in a row is really nice. So they have the same amount of drones, but just 307th has better tech, whereas Top has a little bit more tempo. Looks like the botches will get their value. There is enough attack on the board. Can 307th hold on? There's that force field that he got way earlier with that extra conduit. Now he has to either hold the botch or a drone. Top could buy a Rager here if they wanted to, just by holding everything. But I suppose he didn't like what happened last time he did that, and now he just wants tempo. Which I think makes sense. Like, bottom really doesn't have many drones at this point. With 9 drones, you're barely able to get your Proto per turn, and if Proto can't defend at some point, you're basically just dead. Oh, but he changes his mind. He's looking at the Rager line here. I mean, it's a really great attacker, even if you're, you know, not denying absorb, it's still pretty good attack. Especially if you can use that extra gold for something, but he can't. Like, imagine he could click Corpus. That would be really strong. But since he can't, I'm not sure he wants to do this. It still is decent though, because like, bottom maybe wanted to buy another Proto anyways. And if he did, then he's still technically denying absorb. So I think it's worth looking at this line. And also the 4 health Protoplasm really doesn't want to click to kill these Rhinos. So now he gets a bunch of extra threat, so it's really interesting. But I am a little heartbroken not being able to corpus click. Imagine 1 more gold. Be crazy. So there's going to be no more botches up there for top. I think top's tempo might get a little bit rough. Like bottom has just enough attack that adding a proto per turn is quite a lot of pressure. Like these red versus red games, the person adding a proto per turn can just kill you with ghost charges kinda. But since he's defended, adding botches first and then proto later probably is the right call. So these botches really catch him up on attack. And then again, he still just has this better tech and 2 green floated. I think this might be looking pretty rough for top. I think the game from here is just going to be pure tempo after this turn ends. Both players are just literally going to be buying nothing but defense, and someone's going to come out on top. And unless Dusk is using Corpus Click, then he's basically just buying Rhinos, so let's see what happens. Oh my gosh, his intuition is to buy a Blood Rager here? Oh my gosh. Oh no. That is gonna be rough. Oh my gosh. I think 307 could either buy a Proto or these botches, and both would be crushing. I get the Rager though, he just felt like he needed some fancy play to come back, I guess. But yeah, I think that might be it. Alright, GG. Well played, 307th.